Regardless of whether you've been following boxing over the last 10 to 20 years or so, I can almost guarantee you've heard of the name Mayweather. More specifically, Floyd "Money" Mayweather, arguably the greatest ever boxer to lace up a pair of gloves with an undefeated record of 50 bouts, 50 wins with 27 coming by way of knockout. He won 15 major titles from the weight class of super featherweight all the way up to light middleweight. This also includes having the famous Ring Magazine belt in 5 weight classes and the Lineal Championship in 4 weight classes. In this video, we'll be diving into some of the most famous fights and taking a closer look at what his opponents had to say after facing the man himself, Floyd Mayweather Jr. Before we do so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. On the 5th of May 2007, Floyd would take on seemingly one of his toughest opponents to date, who some would consider a great within the sport, Oscar De La Hoya. During his time as a professional boxer, De La Hoya is thought to have made more money than anyone else in the sport, an estimated $696 million pay-per-view income, and has held 10 world titles in 6 different weight classes. To say this was a big fight would be quite the understatement. In usual style, for nearly all of the 12 rounds, Floyd used his speed, footwork, and defense to stay on the back foot, whilst De La Hoya was on the front foot, looking to be aggressive from the offset. But as the fight progressed, it was clear to see that Mayweather was the more calculated, clever fighter of the two in there, and although on the back foot, Floyd managed to outland De La Hoya throughout the fight with sharp counters and straight punches. Floyd eventually got the victory via split decision in one of his most defining fights.
You made a terrific fight. Did you think you won it?
I felt I won. I felt I landed the hard punches, the crisper punches. Every time I would hit him, it would hurt him. And I was pressing the fight, so I mean, you got to beat the champion decisively. And I was just pressed. If I didn't press a fight, there would be no fight.
Years after the fight, Oscar eventually came to praise Mayweather for his boxing skills.
Floyd Mayweather was a fighter who was very intelligent, very smart, very calculated. Timing of punches were precise, and that's where I have to give Floyd Mayweather the most credit and the most respect.
In his next fight, Mayweather wouldn't take a backward step. After facing one of the boxing greats in De La Hoya, he would take on who many thought to be Britain's best at the time, Ricky the Hitman Hatton. When the pair fought later in 2008, Ricky was already an undefeated, established multiple world champion who was adored by the British boxing fans. Their fight would take place in Las Vegas for the WBC World Welterweight title, and what a show it turned out to be.
And I think he's trying to get up under my skin this week and worry me and look in my eyes and see a little bit of fear. I only have one message. You're pissing into the wind, son. I ain't scared of you.
Early on, Hatton made it an exciting contest and appeared to unsettle Mayweather a little with his high intensity and constant pressure. As the fight played out, Hatton gradually became exhausted and frustrated. Sensing this, Mayweather began to send hard counter punches back from Hatton's tired-looking shots. Mayweather was clearly in control by the 10th and even knocked Hatton down in the 10th round via a sharp left hook. Even though Ricky would get up from the shot, he would then go on to be stopped by Mayweather later in the round. Another defining victory for Money Mayweather in another career-defining fight.
The first exchange, he come out and he lead left hook. At first, me and Billy were on the opinion of we wanted to ease into the fight, like you do in any fight, get the timing first, anything like that. But he was just so fast.
I think he was more natural at the weight than me. I think it showed at times, He was cleverer than I expected inside. I think 1 or 2 little sneaky fouls with the forearms and the shoulders and able to make the room for himself. But as I keep saying, it's not a tickling contest, is it?
Almost 3 years on from his fight with Ricky, Floyd would take to the ring once more against a former world champion in American boxer Victor Ortiz in Las Vegas' famous MGM Grand. As most predicted, Floyd did eventually get the victory, but not many predicted just how controversial it would turn out to be. During the fight, referee Joe Cortez called a timeout after Ortiz landed what he saw as an intentional headbutt on Mayweather and took a point from Victor. Cortez motioned the fighters back together to resume the bout. Both fighters touched gloves and hugged. As Mayweather separated from the hug, and whilst Ortiz was looking at the referee, he hit Victor with a left hook that stunned him, and with Ortiz still not defending himself, Mayweather put Ortiz down with a right hand. After the controversy, here's what Ortiz had to say.
I was called a break by the referee, so I did as I obeyed. I obeyed exactly as I was told, and I looked at the ref and I went like that, and I looked up, and then boom, I was out. So, it happens.
Like, I was waiting for a time in. I looked at Floyd, he hit me, boom. I just remember I said, okay, I probably deserve that, bro. All right, we're good, we're solid. All right, cool, man, cool.
I think on both parts, we both had a lot of mistakes taking place. He was hitting me with his elbows. I took a lot of them. I believe it was 16 or 17.
2 years later, one of the biggest fights in boxing history was to take place. Canelo Alvarez versus Floyd Mayweather. At the time, Canelo was an undefeated multiple world champion who carried the hopes of Mexican boxing on his shoulders. Although Mayweather's achievements and prowess inside the ring was undoubted, a lot thought that Canelo may be the kryptonite to Mayweather's slick defensive counterpunching. But on the night, it didn't quite turn out to be the case, with Mayweather comfortably outboxing Canelo, and he won via majority decision, with most ringside media and fans having it near on a shutout victory for the American.
It's just as simple as the 15 pounds were negated today because I couldn't catch him. And all his punches were just hitting my gloves basically tonight.
You must want to get him back in the ring. ¿No?
Siempre que me hacen esa pregunta, siempre voy a repetir lo mismo, ¿no? Me encantaría.
Obviously, I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to leave here with the loss, but it happens, it hurts, but here I am.
In once again one of the biggest fights in boxing history, a fight that was talked about for years and years before it finally got made, Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Manny the Pac-Man Pacquiao. The mega fight would take place at the MGM Grand Arena in Las Vegas on May 2, 2015. Beforehand, some people thought that Manny could exploit the few weaknesses Floyd possessed with Manny's quick feet, even faster hands, and his front foot pressure. But in usual style, Mayweather went on to prove the doubters wrong once again. Apart from a few short bursts of success, Mayweather would outbox the Pac-Man down the stretch and earned himself a majority decision. Although Pacquiao remains firm, he won the fight to this day.
It's a good fight. I thought I won the fight.
You thought you won the fight? Why?
He didn't do nothing. He always move outside. When I reviewed the fight, I threw a lot of punches than him, and then I connected more than he connected. But I respect the decision of the judges.
I did my best, but my best wasn't good enough.
Champion in Mayweather would take on an MMA champion in Conor McGregor inside the squared circle of a boxing ring. As expected, the build-up would turn out to be a show by itself, and subsequently, the pay-per-view numbers would be reaching high into the millions for this one.
28 years of age, I'm getting fight checks and promoter checks. When Floyd was 28, he was on Oscar De La Hoya's undercard.
Before the fight, common sense would say it would be a W for Mayweather, but as seen before, Conor McGregor rarely goes by the script, and the Irish fans thought his unorthodox southpaw style, coupled with a huge left hand, would be too much for the aging Mayweather. But on the night, Money Mayweather once again proved his worth, despite claims of age and ring rust beforehand. After some early success from Conor, Mayweather started to walk the MMA fighter down, noticing his tiredness, and eventually finished him via technical knockout in the 10th round of their bout.
I thought the first 4 rounds were mine. Certainly the first 3. The fourth was close. You could probably give it to him, let's say 3-1, and that's being generous. I thought I won the 8th, and then he won the 9th, and we got stopped in the 10th. I think I smoked him in the early rounds. I thought I was pretty handily whooping him in the early rounds, and then he changed his style. He put his hands up and came down low, put his forehead on the chest, and started getting to work, and I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't anticipate that. You know what I mean? It was a good fight. Thought I smoked him the early rounds. I thought I'd bust you up the early rounds, but I tell you what, you're one composed individual.
Despite what you may think about Floyd Money Mayweather, there's no disputing nor doubting his greatness in the ring. From the fighters he's beaten, his accomplishments, and the number of eyes he's brought to the sport is arguably unmatched in recent years. To give you an idea, Floyd still holds the top 4 places when talking about how many pay-per-view buys a single fight generates. In essence, how big a single fight is and how much money it generates. I guess that's why they call him Money Mayweather, right? Thanks for watching, and if you're new around here, don't forget to like and subscribe.